Howdy, guys, and welcome to night 44 of Big Brother Season 24's overnight feeds recaps. And welcome to Cliff Notes. All right, we had our big live 2-hour eviction episode last night with the introduction of the House Divided twist. Now, first of all, I got to say, they spent a little too much time leading up to the eviction itself. And as a result, we found out who the HOH winners were, but we didn't find out who was on the inside and who was on the outside for the next week. So, yeah, they left us with a little bit of a cliffhanger, but I'm here to give y'all all the scoop this morning about everything that went down last night once the feeds came back. Now, the feeds themselves took forever. We didn't get the feeds back until about 1:30 or so Big Brother time, which is 3:30 in the morning Houston time. So, good opportunity to take a little bit of a nap, but I sure didn't want to miss anything. So I had the live feeds turned on, the volume turned up high. So as soon as the feeds came back, I'd know what was going on. Worked out well, except I've got the theme song running through my head all this morning now after so long of hearing it in my sleep. So the price we pay, right? All right, before we talk about who's on the inside and who's on the outside, just as a quick refresher of the episode itself last night, we lost Indy, our girl from Brazil, the girl from Ipanema, or Sao Paulo, close enough. But we lost Indy. She's our very first juror. And we did see her exit interview. Two things that struck me on her exit interview. First of all, Michael with his goodbye message. Remember, this is the first goodbye message to the jurors. Michael with his goodbye message, playing a little bit of a Josh Martinez type strategy of spilling all kinds of information to try to buy some goodwill with the jurors. So he spilled the beans that there's the Leftovers Alliance that has been formed the last several weeks that was responsible for getting Indy out the door and listed all the members of it. I'm not surprised that he told her. I think that's good strategy. I'm surprised that Indy was so surprised to hear all those names being listed as working together. She had one of these looks on her face. And she told Julie later, she had a gut feel, is their intuition, they probably were working together. First time she'd actually heard it absolutely spelled out and confirmed. And that happened with Michael. So she was a little surprised with that. Also, I did notice she's blaming Kyle for everything, at least before Michael spilled the beans on the leftovers. But she's thinking that Kyle and Monty must have had something going on. And that's why Kyle didn't use the veto and he was targeting Indy. And not sure that Kyle's going to get Indy's vote if Kyle makes it to a final two and has to appeal to the jury for the votes. We'll see. And now that she has time to think about the leftovers and as other jurors come in, things may change. But at least right now, maybe not the best thing for Kyle. But Indy, even though she's out the door, she is now aware of the Leftovers Alliance. How did she not know beforehand? All right. That being said, we come back from a commercial. They're ready for the HOH competition. Remember, Julia spelled out the twist for us at this point in time. One group's going to be indoors the whole week. One group's going to be outdoors the entire week. 2 HOHs are going to be picked this evening. Nominations will be made. Veto competitions will be played just like a regular old week of Big Brother, except there's going to be 2 groups instead of 1. And there's only 5 people per group. That's huge. We're going to talk about that in more detail, but that completely changes the way this game's being played. So the HOH competition itself, it's one of those pick'ems where if you win your round, you get to pick 2 other people. So you kind of have to show who your loyalties are to, who your targets are, things like that. And the competition itself is a Where's Waldo type quick look. You see a screen different festivals, and they were tasked with finding which of the pre-jurors was holding a small sign that said VIP. Whoever hits the right quadrant that it's in, there's only 3 groups, so it wouldn't be a quadrant, it'd be a trigant or something. Y'all know what I mean. You pick which section of the screen the pre-juror is in. Whoever hits the button fastest wins the round. Last 2 people become the 2 HOHs. Whoever wins the final round is the big HOH, the indoor HOH, the luxury HOH, as opposed to the more primitive outdoor HOH. So we have the competition. It was on the episode, so I'm not going to go through all the boot orders or anything else. But at the end, the final 2 left standing are Terrence and Michael. Yeah, and Michael wins over Terrence. So Michael is the luxury HOH indoors. Michael's second HOH. I get it. With only 5 people, you got to win if you get a chance. But yet another comp win for Michael. That target's just getting bigger and bigger, but he did what he had to do. Terrence, on the other hand, this is the first competition win of any sort for Terrence. So props to Terrence, props to the older guy in the house. I'm always going to be a little partial to the older guy. I was glad to see that Terrence won that thing. He's going to get a little bit of a golden moment, regardless of what happens from this point on. He'll always be able to reflect back on when he was HOH this particular week. So good for Terrence. Now, y'all are all here wanting to know who's on each side, right? Yeah, I didn't want to bury the lead, but we're to that point. We find out that when it comes to figuring out who's going to be on which side, it's going to be an old-fashioned schoolyard pick. Michael gets to pick first, Terrence picks second. They go back and forth until these house guests are all distributed either as an insider or an outsider. So how did it work out? Well, it turns out that Michael has picked the foursome that's going to be with Michael inside the house is Brittany. I had no surprise there, right? Brittany, Taylor, probably not a big surprise there either. And then Jasmine and Monty. Michael's smart. I think he picks two people that he feels are going to be complete allies. Then he's also got one person, Jasmine, who's obviously the target, right? And then Monty is a backup target if he absolutely has to. So I think Michael played it very well. Outside, as a result of Michael's picks, and they took turns, but outside, Terrence has selected Alyssa, Turner, Kyle, and Joseph. So there you go. It's that's interesting. So what stands out from these picks? First of all, Jasmine is indoors. I don't know. I guess it's the cruel side of me that would have loved to have seen Jasmine outside having to sleep in a sleeping bag and use a porta potty and eat less than fantastic food. But she stayed indoors. In fact, Terrence later told one of the house guests outside, said, yeah, some of my picks were based on who I thought would more appreciate being indoors as opposed to having to camp outdoors. And I'm sure he looked at Jasmine and thought, if I pick her to go outside, she's going to kill me. Absolutely kill me. Now, I think it would have helped Jasmine's game to be outside as opposed to inside. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, so Jasmine's inside, so she gets to enjoy the house for another week, maybe only another week. And the other thing that struck me is that Alyssa and Kyle, the showmance, are outdoors together. So we'll see how the other three think about the two of them spending next week outdoors. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. All right. So based on that, who's in trouble? The way these teams worked out. Well, as I mentioned, I think Jasmine absolutely is in trouble. She's the only non-leftover inside the house. I think her only chance at survival is winning veto. Outside, my initial thoughts when I was putting these notes together was that maybe Alyssa was most in danger outside. I'm not as convinced about that after listening to conversations all night long, and we'll talk about that as we go forward. But yeah, Alyssa may be in a better position than I thought she was, and I didn't realize there may have been some promises, some agreements made earlier, so that may work to her advantage at this point. But here's the thing: veto is so important. When there's 15 people in the house, it's nice to have, but when there's only 5 people in the house, everyone's playing for veto, limited targets, it becomes absolutely huge, absolutely critical. I know in Big Brother, every single week there's someone in a diary room session saying this is the most important veto competition ever. Well, in this case, this week, these truly are important veto competitions. So let's talk about it. First of all, inside, same old house. Other than the fact that it's going to be incredibly quiet. I was in the house when there were 16 of us. I was in the house when there were 4 of us. The difference is amazing. They're going to be walking around finding not just entire rooms, but entire sections of that house with no one in them. You hear echoes. You hear every little squeak, every little movement of the cameras as they follow you along. So it is a huge difference in just the way things feel when you're in a house with so few people. They're gonna notice it, and I think they're gonna be a little bored this week inside that house. Outside the house, let's talk about what's changed. How Big Brother has set up our outsider house guests. Well, first of all, they've got sleeping bags set up under a big 10 by 10, 15 by 15 type canopy. So they're all in sleeping bags. Now, Terrence is being the HOH. He actually gets to sleep on a cot, it looks like. So that's his premium bedding, is a little bit of a cot as well. Everyone else is on the ground, it looks like. They may have sleeping pads under the sleeping bags. I couldn't really tell, but they're on the ground. There is an outdoor kitchen by the stairs. It looks like it's fairly limited, maybe a burner, electric grill, something. We don't really know yet. Apparently, if the food is limited out there, if you want to replenish your food, you have to ring a bell. in the new upstairs diary room, and you can get a little bit of food back, but it's not going to be really fancy food, it doesn't look like. As I mentioned, there is a diary room upstairs where they'll be conducting their sessions. They do have a shower, but unfortunately, it's just a shower used to wash off to get into the swimming pool. Cold water only. Kyle says, man, we better be showering during the day when it's hot, because otherwise this is going to be brutal to do so at night. They do have 2 porta potties. Only one of them's unlocked, though. I don't know what the other one is, but they do have 2 porta potties out there to take care of their needs. It's going to be a rough week for the outsiders. I truly think. Now, Kyle, former Boy Scout, former Eagle Scout, he's used to camping. I'm sure he'll fit right in. Turner talked a little bit during the evening about a bunch of camping trips he'd been in. Turner will be just fine. Alyssa, not so sure what her camping experience is. Same with Joseph. Kyle said, "You don't camp in Florida?" And Joseph's like, "I don't camp in Florida." And Terrence, maybe with one of the one-liners of the night, Terrence said, "Yeah, we've got camping in Chicago, but up there we call it homelessness." So yeah, that's a good one. I got a little chuckle out of it. Anyway, so they're definitely going to be roughing it out in the backyard. Now let's talk a little bit about some of the conversations that took place quickly, because there were quite a few that took place. Inside, the house guests have discovered that the outsiders apparently took most of the pillows in the house outside with them. It sounds like maybe the insiders had a lockdown up in the HOH room, while the outsiders could come through and gather up some clothing, some supplies, bathroom supplies, things like that. Well, they also apparently took all their pillows out into the backyard, almost all the pillows. So Taylor and Jasmine not really happy with that. They later discovered that the Chinese checkers have also been taken outside. Not happy at all about that, and they're wanting to know if Big Brother maybe will give them an extra set of Chinese checkers for the guys inside as well. There's talk about what they're going to do this week. I think Taylor wants to do some fashion shows. I think it was Brittany maybe was saying they want to play some mafia games, and Monty suggests a lot of meditation sessions with Brittany. So yeah, I think it's going to be boring for these guys, especially because inside the house, I feel like they already know what they want to do in terms of targets and everything else. So there's not a lot of discussions to be had. All right, outside, we've got Terrence on his bed looking at his pictures and reading his letter. Apparently, he already got the HOH basket before the feeds came back. I hate to see that. Maybe we get to see it on the episode itself. I'd like to see him get his letter and pictures, but he's looking at the pictures, reading his letter. Eventually, Kyle, who's next to him on the ground, moves his sleeping bag over to the outdoor patio area and sets a sleeping bag up on some of the padded sofas. And Alyssa's doing the same thing. So they're figuring out maybe a better way to spend the next week sleeping. Now, are they doing this for comfort, moving away to the backyard patio? Are they doing it for comfort, or are they doing it to get away from Terrence's snoring? Maybe a little of both at this point in time. Turner's talking. Turner's excited for this week. He thinks this is going to be one of the better weeks. I think Turner's a little excited that he may be spending a week without any contact with Jasmine. I think Turner's seeing that as some welcome relief. All right, they do discover that the food, according to Joseph, it's doomsday food. Spam, freeze-dried food, tuna, Smucker's jellies, nothing fancy that they're going to be eating this week. In fact, they even have a recipe or two for the spam out there if they want to partake of some spam as well. I don't think they'll get that desperate. I think maybe Alyssa said, yeah, I'll just be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches the whole time I'm out here. We also have the outside house guests comparing themselves to Sesame Street characters, because they all have blankets that they've been given with pom-poms on them, and they're decently bright colors. Turner says, I'm like the Oscar the trash can guy, and someone else, maybe Joseph, feeling like he's like Grover because it's a blue outfit. Here's the thing. I looked at the weather forecast. During the daytime for this next week, high 80s, low 90s, not a drop of rain in sight. It's going to be brutally hot for these guys outside during the day. During the night, it drops down into the 60s, so it could be a little chilly with that old ocean wind blowing onto them as well. So they're going to get a little bit of extremes with it. Joseph complained last night how it was absolutely cold, so they got some blankets to help out with that a little bit. Turner's talking about that he's planning to just nap on the floaty that's in the pool. All I gotta say is, you better hurry and make claim on that floaty, Turner, because I have a feeling that Alyssa and Kyle probably have their own plans for that floaty. So grab it while you can, and we'll all be appreciative of it. All right, inside the house, They're cleaning out the refrigerator because they're saying it smells fishy, hoping if they clean it out that Big Brother will give them some more food. Maybe not so much. Michael does get his HOH room as well and his basket. Another letter from his fiance, pictures of his cats. I'm sure there's a picture of his fiance in there as well, but some pictures and some letters as well. As they finish up, there are only a few of them. I mean, it's only 5 in the house, so not a lot to see his HOH room. But Michael mentions that, hey, might as well. Nominations are probably tomorrow, so we might as well do one-on-ones if y'all don't mind right now. So they immediately start their one-on-ones. Jasmine's first. Jasmine always seems to be first to talk to these HOHs after a new HOH is crowned. But Jasmine's first. And the way she's talking, it sounds like Terrence must have picked Turner with his first choice. Michael saying, yeah, I was going to pick Turner, but I didn't realize Terrence was going to make him his very first pick. So they're talking a little bit about that. Jasmine is talking about the fact that she absolutely did not want Terrence to pick her. And I'm not sure if that was because of strategy or comfort, but she's thanking Michael for picking her. I think getting picked for the inside with this group is absolutely the worst case situation for Jasmine, but she seems at least talking to Michael to be happy that she's indoors. They are talking about the outsiders. Jasmine's feeling like Kyle or Turner is potentially going home. I'm not sure that's the case, and we'll talk about that in a second. Michael is saying, look, I think I have to put up Monty at nominations when it comes down to it. Now, is he saying that just for Jasmine's benefit or because he truly needs to put up Monty? I think it's both. I absolutely do. And certainly from Jasmine's standpoint, are they going to spend the whole week telling Jasmine that Monty's the target, that she's just up there as a pawn, and she'll spend the last week still not knowing about the leftovers? Possible, but consider this scenario and why Michael may, you got to be very careful about who you put on the block, who you don't. Because consider this scenario. If whoever doesn't get put on the block by Michael or Terrence, same situation outside, whoever doesn't get put on the block, if they then win veto, not only are they safe, but they can pull one of the house guests that are on the block, pull them off the block, and force the HOH to put up the only 2 remaining house guests. So as an example, if Michael put up Jasmine and Taylor on the block, and then Monty, not on the block, won veto and pulled off Taylor, then Michael is then forced to put up Brittany because Monty and Taylor are already safe. And then Monty and Taylor get to decide who goes home. So the HOH truly could lose a lot of power if they aren't careful about how they do it, which almost makes it a point where you want to keep safe from the nomination block that person who probably is the least likely to win veto, just because that way you're forcing them. If they do, the stronger players, if they win veto, they take themselves off, but you still have another target up there. You still have a little bit of an option. So that's why I think Michael's a little concerned. If he leaves Monty off, Monty could win, and suddenly Brittany's on the block, and maybe Brittany goes home. So I do think there's some strategic reasoning to why Michael is making this claim. It's a dangerous situation. It happened in my season when Nicole won BB Comics, and suddenly Nikki was forced to put up Holly on the block. So it is something that you got to be very careful for. All right. Michael is saying that Monty's going up. Is again, he's got to put up Monty, but it's just a matter of who goes up next to him. We viewers all know it's Jasmine, right? Jasmine didn't know it, but we know that Jasmine's going to be going up next to Monty. Jasmine, though, is promising to do everything possible to keep Taylor in the game if Michael will put up Taylor instead of Jasmine. She's saying, I do not want to go up on the block, Michael. And then she uses the excuse we've been hearing forever. One of them that she tells Michael that she just doesn't want to go up on the block on her birthday week. All right, that's it. If I'm Michael, at that point, I'm saying conversation over. Not only are you going on the block, but just for using that argument, Jasmine, you're my primary target. No ifs, ands, and buts. No whispering around, hinting, misleading it. You're going home because I'm tired of hearing about your birthday week. That would just be me. But you got to play the social game, jury management, all that. So he's not going to do that. But yeah, she's still using the excuse of birthday week for why she should not be going on the block. She also says that she wants to make it to Final 5. because her father is watching from heaven, and it just means so much for her if she can make it to the final five. So she's definitely trying to pull on the heartstrings. It's not going to work with Michael. It's not going to work. As soon as Jasmine's out the door, Michael kind of says to himself and to the camera, says, yeah, she's going on the block. So again, I think it's a pretty foregone conclusion how it's going to work inside the house. But he does have the rest of his conversations. He's talking to Monty, saying that Jasmine wanted Monty on the block. No surprise there. Michael's saying his goal is just to make sure Jasmine doesn't win the veto. If Jasmine wins the veto, then what happens? Then she'll pull herself off. I would expect at that point Michael puts Monty up. Jasmine votes for to send Monty out the door, and I think Monty may go home at that point. Brittany probably votes as well, and they're not going to send Taylor out. So I think if Jasmine was to win veto, Monty goes home. Otherwise, it's pretty cut and dry. Jasmine's heading out this week. All right, Michael is talking to Brittany. They're both sold on getting Jasmine out. No surprise there. More talk about the other side and future weeks, how they think this is all going to work. Brittany's worried that Alyssa could go home from the outsider. She's thinking the same thing I was. A little bit worried about Alyssa. They're also worried about their final four, about taking Monty to a final four. And Michael saying maybe he'd feel more comfortable with Joseph at a final four. But then Brittany mentioning out saying, well, be careful because Joseph's very tight with Taylor. That could create its own issues. They may support each other more so than us. So they've got this week figured out, they think. They're already thinking about future weeks. Not so much in the backyard. All right. Taylor's in talking to Brittany and Michael. Brittany stays for just a little bit, then she disappears or leaves. But Taylor's expressing worry that Joseph could go home this week. Valid fear. Michael's telling Taylor that Jasmine is thinking that Monty is a target so far this week. He's going to tell Jasmine that he's putting her up because she's the only one that hasn't been on the block. So they're still playing these games and everything. So he's got a reason why Jasmine's going to be going on the block next to Monty. But again, she's going to think that she's a pawn. All right, let's talk about the backyard a little bit before we shut this thing down. We've got Terrence using alcohol to clean off his tattoos. It's going to take a lot of alcohol. Kyle asking the difference between rubbing alcohol and that kind of alcohol you drink. It's a huge difference. Don't ever get the two confused. Terrence is trying to get the tattoos removed. They're talking about traveling around the world, everything else. Turner's talking about how much he likes London. Kyle asked Turner, he said, look, you love London. Would you have taken the London trip from Taylor if you had the chance? And Turner said, no, I'm a good player. So a little dig at Alyssa there. All right, Terrence is going to do his one-on-ones. Terrence wants to do his one-on-ones based on the order in which he picked the people to be on his team, which I like because it helped me figure out who he picked one after the other. So the very first person up, the first person that Terrence picked, Turner. Yeah, Terrence talks about that he and Turner have been tight since day one. Maybe not so much from Turner's side, but hey, it may work to his advantage this week. So Turner's up first. Turner is suggesting a backdoor to Terrence. He's saying, look, put up Kyle and Alyssa. If anyone but Joseph wins, then we'll pull Kyle down and we'll put Joseph up in his place and we'll backdoor Joseph. Well, just as an FYI, it's not a backdoor if everyone competes in veto. A backdoor is when you don't get the chance to fight for your life in a veto competition, then you get sent home. So it's not a backdoor, but I understand what they're saying. So yeah, Turner just saying, let's just shoot for Joseph. As long as he doesn't win, we'll send him out the door. Alyssa's next. And it's interesting because why would Terrence have picked Alyssa next after Turner? I'm thinking he probably was looking at Alyssa maybe as being his target for the week. He had someone that he thought would just support him, his one vote he would need to ensure it at least got to a tiebreaker, and now Alyssa is his target. Just my thinking. I could be wrong, but I think that's what he's thinking. So Alyssa's talking to Terrence, and Terrence is saying he picked Alyssa and Kyle because he trusts him so much and that he wants Joseph gone. He's saying, look, I'm probably going to put y'all up as nominations. Y'all are showmance all out. Use that as the excuse. I'm going to put y'all up together, but I don't want to keep y'all there as long as Joseph doesn't win veto. Turner's going to pull you off. I'll pull you off. Obviously, either one of y'all win, you'll pull yourself off, and we'll put Joseph up. He's going out the door. So he's saying that. But Alyssa's saying, look, Joseph's going to play just as hard no matter what. Whether he's on the block or not, he's going to be playing for this veto. So she's saying, why not just make him an initial nominee in the first place? Why do all so? Just put him up there. As long as he doesn't win veto, he's still going home. Terrence at that point is starting to say, well, maybe I'll not use Turner's plan of the showmance, but I'll put up Kyle and Joseph instead. I'll leave you alone. Keep your backbone here, Terrence. Don't back off just because someone's wanting you to do something. But here's the thing. Getting back to what I talked about veto and how important it is and everything else. If Alyssa isn't on the block, then she could win veto, pull Kyle off the block, which means that they're both protected, and then either Monty or Turner go out the door. On the other hand, if Kyle and Alyssa are both put on the block together, if either one of them wins veto, yes, they can pull themselves off, but the other member of the showmance stays on the block and can still be sent home. So from Alyssa's standpoint, it's much more important that at least one or the other not be on the block. So theoretically, there's a chance they can save each other and be good going forward. I hope Terrence is thinking about this. All right. Terrence now talking to his third pick, Joseph. And Terrence is saying, look, I gave my word to Alyssa that I wouldn't put her up. I hadn't heard this before. I missed this, but he's saying, I gave my word to Alyssa I wouldn't put her up. And he's saying, and Turner's been with me since day one. He's been my guy. So he's saying, Kyle's going up. Kyle's my target. Remember, he's telling Joseph this. He's saying, Kyle is my target. He's going to go up, but I'm going to have to put you up probably alongside Kyle. Joseph sounding a little desperate. First time I've heard Joseph really sounding desperate this season. He's saying, look, I saved you 3 times, Terrence. Isn't that worth something? And if you put me up there, there's a lot of people that are going to think I'm the target, that are going to want me to be the target. If you put me on that block, Terrence, there's a good chance I'm going home. It all comes down to the veto this week. It truly comes down to the veto. He says he has sway with Monty and Taylor. If Terrence can just make sure that Joseph stays alive this week, he's got the sway with Monty and Taylor, and he'll make sure that they uses that to help protect Terrence and everything else. I'm not sure it's the best strategy to talk about how tight you are with other people still in the house. We're getting to the point where your social game with other people pay attention to it. And don't know if that's a selling point or not, but Joseph definitely sounding a little desperate at this point in time. Joseph at one point says, look, my people are you, Jasmine, and Alyssa, and we protect our people, and I'll do what I need to do, but just don't put me on the block. Well, I think he's going on the block. All right, we've got finally then Terrence with Kyle. Terrence is saying, look, me and Alyssa and Turner, we promised not to put each other up. I'm not going to do that, Kyle. I just can't do that. So Turner and Alyssa are safe from nomination, which means you and Joseph are going up. But he's telling Kyle, saying, I want Joseph out. That's my target. You're just up there because I promised the other 2, but you're good. As long as Joseph doesn't win veto, you're good. Kyle's saying, look, my trust with Joseph is gone since he was trying so hard to get Alyssa out the door. So I don't have any problem making him the target whatsoever. And Kyle's saying he doesn't think that if Turner was to win the veto, he doesn't think that he would use it on Joseph. So he agrees with Terrence that as long as Joseph doesn't win that veto, that they should be good to go. Kyle's also saying, look, if you keep Alyssa off the block and make sure that she's one of the voting people, I'll make sure that she votes out Joseph, that she doesn't do anything sneaky or tricky at the end. I'll make sure that she votes the way that you want to vote, Terrence. Just keep her off the block. Again, Kyle's thinking, I think, the same thing, that as long as either he or Alyssa are off the block and wins veto, then they both could be safe and not even be up there on eviction night. So eventually Kyle says, look, I understand you made promises. That's fine. I believe you when you say your target's Joseph. So I'm fine. If you need to put me up in order to keep your promise to the others, I'm okay with that. It's good. Do what you have to do, Terrence. I'm fine with that. All right. And then finally, we got the group talking about camping a little bit and all, and just general chit chat after that point in time. And I think the house guests are all in bed, 6 or so, Houston time, 7 o'clock. So what was that, 5 o'clock, Big Brother time. So there you have it, guys. It's going to be interesting with only 5 people. So many things can happen right now. The only thing we know for certain, Michael and Terrence are safe for the week. Anyone else, there's a possibility, but it's certainly sounding like Jasmine and Joseph are probably the 2 that are most in trouble. But it all comes down to the veto competition. It's going to be taking place tomorrow, and we got the veto of the nomination ceremonies today. We'll see how that works. Who gets put up as targets? Who gets put up as pawns? All right, guys. With that being said, y'all have a fantastic Friday. Enjoy the very last work day of the week. I will be back tomorrow morning, give you all the updates about the nominations and conversations, scenarios, everything else that takes place. Until then, guys, SKD 143. Cheers, my friends. Bye.